6 weeks after you were conceived, your brain began to differentiate from other cells in your fetal body. By 6 months, it was physically pretty much like an adult brain. During the time you were in the womb, you shared your mother's blood and blood chemistry. Her nutritional and exercise choices affected your brain's development. If she was anxious, depressed, or angry, or if she was positive, happy, and secure about having a child, your brain shared those chemicals. And then at about 9 months, you died. Suddenly, within hours, you were squeezed out of the only world you had ever known through a small opening down a dark tunnel toward an impossibly bright light. You popped into an entire new universe, naked, helpless, and with a snip of surgical scissors, cut off from all the resources your life depended upon. Your brain knew one body, one scent, one warmth, your birth mother, the universe in which it had lived. Within minutes, it found that body, or it didn't. It was protected, cared for, warmed, fed, and cleaned as it had been before, or it was on its own. Your brain was the universe as far as it knew, and the universe was reliable or chaotic, welcoming or disinterested, loving or angry. Your brain is one of the most sophisticated systems in the universe. Scientists call it complex adaptive. Complex because it's made up of dozens of smaller systems that interact via feedback. Adaptive because it creates and updates itself based on two things. First, the initial conditions of its formation, that is, its life in the womb, the experience of birth, and what it found when it first entered its new universe. And second, what it experiences as it grows over years toward independence. Modern psychology is based on the concept of a normal brain and a normal person. A brain or person not within the average range is pathological. But complex adaptive systems are not normative. They don't fit the bell-shaped curve. Every complex adaptive system is a unique response to its initial conditions and the experiences it's faced in forming itself. It may not be ideal for the life you want to live today, but it is the brain it was able to become, and it got you this far. Your brain is divided into two hemispheres and various lobes and structures that cooperate in the functions of living. In simple terms, the right side of your brain deals with new situations. It's the being hemisphere. It can put things in categories, but it notes how individuals differ from the category. It provides context to experience. It's intuitive, empathic, creative, and it has access to the spiritual. It deals with what is. The left side is the doing hemisphere. It goes after what it wants. It operates efficiently by simplifying life into categories rather than individual cases. It uses language to represent experience rather than experience itself. It's a rule book for how to respond based on what it believes has worked in the past. The right side figures out what works best in a new situation. Then the left side establishes a rule and applies it universally. The top layer of your brain, the cortex, is divided into various lobes. The back of your brain focuses on what comes in from your senses, what you see, hear, and touch. It creates and maintains a library of experiences to help it identify and categorize each new input. It's constantly integrating sensory inputs into a single momentary image of what's important to you at this moment, and then sending that forward to the prefrontal area. Your prefrontal cortex is the executive control center of your brain. It focuses your attention. It receives integrated sensory, emotional, and memory responses to what's happening now. It decides what it means and what, if anything, to do about it, then sends orders to the motor areas in the front. The front of your brain programs and sends motor activity down to be performed by your body, what you say or do. The older part of your brain, beneath the thinking processing cortex, the subcortical structures, deals with emotions, moods, memories, and access to the creative and spiritual experiences. It also identifies potential danger, mobilizes the body to deal with it. It's the home of your subconscious mind. So far, we've been talking about the physical brain, the electrochemical jelly that inhabits your skull. What makes you function, though, what drives you through life and creates the universe you live in, is what we call the energy brain. Think about a baby you've known. Shortly after it's born, it's a machine. You put stuff in one end, it comes out the other. It cries and it sleeps. Then one day you look at the baby and realize, hey, there's someone in there. It recognizes and remembers and reacts. Its brain is still internally oriented, but creating a model of its environment in the present tense. It doesn't plan to eat or sleep or go to the bathroom. It just does those things on impulse, as it did in the womb, and its universe responds, or it doesn't. Your energy brain comes online from beneath to above, from back to front, and from right to left. It also develops from the slowest to the fastest speeds of electrical pulses. The most important part of the newborn brain is the oldest, the subcortical. It links us with the natural world. It feels the energy of father and mother, caring pets, and scary people, things, or events. It actually produces most of your brain's different energy levels, except the fast speeds made in the cortex. The infant is aware of the sensory world way before it's able to move in a coordinated way. The back of the brain begins recognizing and storing faces and other parts of the environment. First, all these things are new, so the right hemisphere must test them, decide how to respond. But as quickly as strategies are established, rules and habits begin to form on the left. The brain moves into slightly faster theta speeds. During this period, the baby's motor areas begin to come online. It can grasp and move in a coordinated way. It crawls, then walks, then runs. Each new activity has to be practiced, but shortly it shifts to a more automatic left-sided program. The brain develops the alpha frequency, one that's crucial for moving around. The baby begins to recognize and categorize a separate external environment. When a child begins to speak and understand language, this is the beginning of the brain's ability to sustain faster beta processing speeds. When the prefrontal executive center begins to operate, organizing, prioritizing, and controlling the brain and body develop. This final process, generally using fast brain speeds, doesn't reach maturity until the mid-20s. It's the culmination of what makes you human. Your brain experiences fewer and fewer new things. The sense of wonder that makes children so engaging fades, and the brain operates increasingly with automatic habits. The left hemisphere takes over, and the brain trades empathy, creativity, and spiritual connections for efficiency and predictability. The older we get, the more these rules and habits dominate our lives. These habits are encoded in the energy patterns, the electrical frequencies within your brain, how fast the neurons are firing, where and when they're firing, and how easily your brain can communicate and shift within itself. These patterns guide not only what you do, but how you do it, and how you feel about it, and how you can change it. These stable patterns are the basis for brain training's promise as a new tool that your brain can use to change itself in lasting ways. What do people want to change in their lives? Well, problems with how they think and learn, feel, act, and control themselves, how they relate to others, see themselves, perform under stress, sleep, digest, or other physical issues, even their ability to experience the spiritual level of life. Are these desired changes the results of diseases, disorders, and pathologies? Or are they habits your brain learned from experience, often very early in life? Well, if they're disorders, then you're stuck. You can't fix a pathology. You go to an expert, take meds, go for therapy sessions. They may help you live with your problem, but they don't help you live without it. But if they're habits, you can change them. In fact, only you can change them. You may have tried to change a habit by changing your mind using psychology, sometimes for months or years without the desired result, because your mind is your experience of your own brain. You change the mind by changing the brain, not vice versa. You change the mind by changing your brain's energy patterns. You may have tried using chemicals, medications, or others to fix these issues and found the response to be limited, temporary, and even complicated by unwanted side effects. The chemistry in your brain is driven by the energy patterns, not vice versa. You change your brain's chemistry by changing its energy patterns. So let's look at an example of an energy pattern in the brain. What happens if a newborn doesn't find its birth mother in a new universe? There may be people caring for it, but where is she? Why did she desert me? If I can't trust her, how can I trust anyone? What did I do to make her leave me helpless this way? The subcortex, which responds to danger, goes into overdrive. The brain, with no context, no language, no experience to help it understand, experiences a lasting state of emergency. It skips over the slowly increasing activity levels of normal development and begins producing its fastest speeds. Remember that the brain comes online from back to front and right to left, so the right rear portion of the brain catches fire. It doesn't learn to understand sensory inputs. Everything is dangerous. It doesn't start trying to figure out the best way to respond to new experiences. There's only one response: terror and rage. Here are energy maps of extremely fast activity in two brains of adults, one who experienced early trauma, the other who did not. This frequency relates to the state called hypervigilance, always looking for danger. The brighter the colors, the greater the amount of this frequency. Looking at the right rear of the brain, it's clear that they're very different in this frequency. These patterns, 30 years after infancy, still exist and still drive a person's life. If changing your brain's patterns is a key to changing your life in a lasting way, how do you do it? Your brain learns new things via feedback, but that's not as easy as it sounds. Yeah, your brain gets constant feedback from friends, family, coworkers, and others, but that feedback is usually inconsistent. It's subjective and not very clear. It can be difficult for your brain to make sense of it. Your brain also gets feedback from its own experience. But complex adaptive systems tend to be self-reinforcing. Once the left hemisphere has learned to do something in a specific way, your brain will continue to do so, even if the result is not what you wanted. Your left hemisphere conscious mind does not like to admit that it doesn't know how to do something. It blames someone or something else for the failure. It's not interested in hearing that its rule book is wrong. So how does brain training work? Well, to learn something new, the brain needs to experience unique feedback, something the conscious mind can't explain away. When you decided to learn to ride a bike, you didn't take a course or read a book. Riding a bike, like training your brain, is a skill best learned by doing it. You got a bike and tried to ride. It was a unique experience. Your right hemisphere began testing various combinations of motor activity, balance, and sensory inputs to find something that worked. You fell over. That was feedback. You got up and tried again and fell over, or feedback. You kept trying until finally you didn't fall. If I asked you, what did you do differently the last time? You'd say, I don't know. I did the same thing each time, only the outcome changed. Your conscious mind couldn't answer because your conscious mind didn't learn. Your brain did. And once it learned, the process became automatic. You could get on a bike again after years and you'd be able to ride. You wouldn't think about it or try to do it. It would just happen. Things that come from the brain just happen. If you become anxious when you face a new situation or one where you feel you may be judged, you don't choose to become anxious. It just happens. It comes from the brain. So neurofeedback brain training does a very simple thing your brain has likely never experienced before. It gives your energy brain a mirror in which it can see itself. Training begins with two sets of information. First, what are the things you most want to change? Second, what patterns do we see when we record 20 areas of your brain? Brain Trainer's assessment searches for dozens of patterns that have been linked by researchers with specific real-life issues. From this information, we produce a training plan customized for your brain. Your whole brain training plan is your roadmap. It defines 5 different training sessions, each working a different set of patterns in your brain. Each session includes 2 to 3 exercises or protocols, so you end up training a wide range of the patterns you want to change. You cycle through the 5 blocks every 5 sessions, allowing your brain to see itself from a variety of angles. Over 25 to 40 sessions, 3 to 6 months, most brains establish new habits that are as lasting as the old ones were. And the more you use them, the stronger they become. You've changed your own energy brain. But what exactly is a protocol? How does it work? Well, imagine that your brain has extremely hot patterns of hypervigilant fast activity in its right rear. Because of that habit, other frequencies in that area are lower than expected. So electrodes are placed over your brain's right rear area, and the software is set up to show the very fast activity you want to reduce and the slower activity that's missing. The software automatically calculates targets for the 2 frequencies. When fast activity is going down and slow activity is rising, feedback tells your brain it's moving in the desired direction. You may hear music that changes in pitch and volume based on brain activation, or score points in a game, or watch a video that gets darker or clearer based on what direction your brain is moving. Like falling or staying up on the bike, your brain uses this feedback to learn how to get into and stay in a state that's new to it and see the changes that occur in the real world. Over a series of sessions, the brain moves further in this new direction and the changes get stronger and more lasting until they become your new normal. Want to learn more about brain training and how you can change your own life? Go to the website linked on this video or our YouTube channel, or contact the Brain Trainer distributor in your area. We believe in our promise. You don't have to be sick to want to get better. Our complete integrated packages of hardware, software, training, and support are available to you, whether you're a professional wanting to offer the promise of brain training to your clients, or a lay trainer wanting to make it available to a friend or family member, or a person who wants to continue changing your own life in positive ways. Whether you're coming from another system or you know nothing about the brain and how to train it, over the past 20 years, we've helped thousands of people like you in more than a dozen countries around the world to offer sophisticated, safe, non-invasive, convenient brain training, as easy as learning to ride a bike. We look forward to hearing from you.